Welcome back to coverage here at Grand Prix Los Angeles. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Rietzel in the feature match area. We've got our quarterfinals all lined up. We have a very happy Eric Froelich. He took a draw with Ben Friedman in the last round of Swiss. Not 100% sure if he was going to make it into the top 8. Turns out both of them made it in. And he's facing down Larry Lee, who is one of the 2 red-black players still left in the field. The other one, Jabberwocky.
Yeah, Logan Nettles with a tuned version of the best deck. No surprise there.
Talked about this a little bit earlier, Paul, but Nexus of Fate, of course, one of the key cards for the Turbo Fog deck that Eric Froelich is playing, but you can only get it in foil, and rather than use some type of substitute card for the only foil in his deck, he decided just to foil out the whole rest of it. So you're going to see some shiny goodness on the side of Eric Froelich. And the other side, though, Larry Lee with a nice little curve of 2 into 3 here. We've got Carries Evan to PNLR.
Yeah, a ton of pressure on Eric early, but nothing he can't handle. And his deck really just wants to get to, turn 4, accelerate into it to Fairy, and then start casting Fogs. And in game 1, that's a really strong game plan against red-black aggro.
In the meantime, things going well for Eric with the Searcher Escanta into the gift. He's still at 20 life, though he is going to be taking a fairly large hit here. 6 damage scheduled to income at the minimum.
The problem game 1 is that Larry doesn't have access to things like Duress or Insult to Injury, some of those cards that could really turn over the apple cart when it comes to Eric's defensive plan. So Larry's best plan is basically to just apply as much pressure as possible and force Eric into having a Haze of Pollen or Root Snare effect as many times as necessary in order to survive until he can start chaining Nexus of Fates. But I don't know. It doesn't look like he's able to threaten lethal next turn, so Eric's got a lot of setup time.
Yeah, a little bit of a stumble there from Larry. He did manage to use all of his mana, so it wasn't terrible. He got a Scrap Heap Scrounger, but he did have to cycle a land in there as well, so it did limit what he could do, especially given how many really powerful 4-mana spells there are in this archetype.
Looks like Eric has the Teferi, but perhaps not another land.
Ooh. Could be tough.
Yeah, that's an issue. Step 1 for this deck is almost always to get Teferi onto the table.
And this is Supreme Will to dig for a land. Now, perhaps a combination of a Fog effect plus a land would be fine here. I see a Root Snare on top of his library, but is there a land?
I think that
or not his library, his hand, I mean.
Yeah, I think Eric with only 1 Fog effect, only 1 Haze of Pollen in his hand, may need to just take another kind of hit on the chin right here, because his next, he still needs another turn where he plays Teferi, pluses it, and sets up. So Larry is very, very likely, well, no, he's going to get another turn after this, basically. So Eric, not out of the woods.
Okay, so if you're Eric Froelich and you take this hit, which he's going to do, we think, how does this... What is he worried about from Larry Lee? What are the ways that if his life total gets low, he could lose?
There are really the 3 ways that in the main deck that he's worried about. 1 copy of Hazaret the Fervent and the triggered ability there, but that's pretty slow. Chandra Torture Defiance ticking up and then dealing direct damage that way. And then the last way is cut to ribbons. So Larry could actually cut one of his own creatures and then use the ribbons to deal the last 5 points of damage.
Aftermath.
The aftermath. Thank you. Saw me struggling there. So, but I think Eric has to just risk it and take it here. He can't use this Root Snare yet.
Well, this is a problem.
Yep.
There is a Chandra Torch of Defiance for Larry Lee. He's turned this draw quite nice. Been a very mana efficient curve out for him, and a tough spot now for Eric Froelich, down to 3 life. Sure, the board he may be able to deal with one way or the other, but Chandra Torch of Defiance adds another angle of attack that can be quite difficult now for Eric.
The plan for Eric is basically to put Teferi on the table this turn. Next turn he wants to cast a Fog effect, not die to something like Cut to Ribbons, and then never give Larry another turn. That's his 3-pronged plan to win this game.
Well, prong A is Teferi. He's done that. If he's got a Fog effect in his hand, then he cannot die this turn to the board and force Larry to have some other way to push through damage. Still, monumental pressure here on Froelich. Down to 1.
How many times this weekend have we seen the Turbo Fog player down to 1,
Uh-huh.
and then they have to try to find some way to turn the corner and get themselves back into it.
It is a common play pattern for sure.
And you see Larry being kind of careful here. This isn't the Turbo Fog deck from the Pro Tour where their only countermeasures were green fog effects. Larry has to also think about the possibility to settle the wreckage here, so he can't just mindlessly jam all of his creatures into the red zone. I mean, he can, but he may not want to.
And it's pretty easy for him to present lethal damage. At only 1, any creature hitting is good enough. So he decides to go for just 2 creatures attacking, though it does make a Ragavan. And look at this, a Rekindling Phoenix. That's exactly what Eric wanted to see. Doesn't matter right now, and he does have a Nexus of Fate in hand. So this is a critical turn of this initial game.
We've talked about it a few times, that as you start to chain together Nexus of Fates, Nexus plus 2 cards a turn provided by your draw step into Fairy, it's a pretty good start, but it's really when you flip Search for Azcanta into Azcanta the Sunken Ruin that the game starts to spin out of control, and Larry has to be concerned that he will never take another turn.
Does Eric have a land here?
Oh, does he not? Well, he put a land into his graveyard, but even if he didn't, he obviously could do the trick where
Yes.
he gets the end step and
He does have enough mana to cast Nexus, but he's going to need a little flexibility there to keep on digging and casting the card draw spells that he needs to keep finding multiple Nexus of Fate over and over. Yeah, he's got the land there, thanks to Chart a Course.
And making those land drops is pretty important because being able to cast Nexus of Fate and activate Azcanta the Sunken Ruin in the same turn is a fairly mana-intensive activity. So,
right.
Here's extra turn number 1.
Okay, so Eric's goal from this point forward is to not let Larry Lee have a single turn. And if he does, he's pretty dead. I mean, if he can gain some life or something, maybe get a buffer.
Exactly. So the only way that Eric can allow Larry to take another turn is if he finds both another copy of Gift of Paradise and another Haze of Pollen or Root Snare. So, and even still, there's some risk involved with that because Larry's going to have a draw step plus a Chandra activation to find, additional direct damage. So
that's right.
The safe plan for Eric against 1 man is just to never let Larry take another turn.
And of course, Search for Azcanta turns into Azcanta the Sunken
Wow.
Ruin and really does help out. What did he get? I didn't see.
He has another Nexus of Fate. So
okay.
What you want to do is take the turns that are on easy mode where you already have the Nexus of Fate and use that to dig and thin your deck as much as possible to make the next turn a little bit easier.
And this is another play pattern that you'll see a lot with this Turbo Fog deck, which is playing the Nexus of Fate before activating your Teferi so that you have just that much more of a chance of drawing another Nexus of Fate, namely the one that you just played.
Doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal over the course of a couple turns. So you have 36 cards in your deck, 3 Nexus of Fate, and you draw a card. You're 3 out of 36, or about 1 in 12 to hit one. If you upgrade that to 4 out of 36, it goes from 1 in 12 to 1 in 9. So all of a sudden you're from just over 8% to 11%, and those sort of little percentages, that's what separates the truly great players from the average.
That is what our game comes down to, a lot more than people recognize. He did find, by the way, Nexus of Fate with Azcanta the Sunken Ruin, so the turn train continues. By the way, Eric's going to be feeling real good right now. I talked to him right before he went into the top 8. This got him platinum.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, and when you're a professional player, that's the highest that you can get in the Pro Players Club, and it basically means I get to be a full-time professional Magic player for another stretch of time. An indeterminate stretch of time currently for Eric, but
yeah.
So it goes. So he was really happy to get that top 8 finish and lock up platinum, and now he can really clear his head and focus on the prize of winning a GP.
Yep. And Eric has accomplished pretty much everything that you can accomplish in Magic, and certainly success at the professional level, at the Pro Tour level, in all sorts of tournament types and levels. But for everybody, even the most grizzled veteran, John Finkel included. I think something about winning that trophy at a Grand Prix is something that is pretty exciting, and find room on the mantle for that for sure.
Yeah, it is one of the things that comes up that I don't think people fully realize. And by the way, this is ultimate for Teferi. This is why it's story time with Paul and I, because this one is looking like it's going to be in the books here for Eric Froelich, especially at a cushy 4 life at this point. Winning the tournament, harder than you think.
Yes.
A lot of your favorite Magic pros have never won, and I'm going to say an individual GP or a Pro Tour. It is extremely difficult to actually take the trophy home. Now, we tend to measure things in terms of top 8s. Right, that's kind of our metric, and then wins are a footnote to your top 8s. Fine. That if you want to take that route, that's fine. You know what I value? Wins. I think winning is what you're supposed to try to do. You're not supposed to try to top 8. You're supposed to try to win the tournament. But a lot of the people, by the way, that's Karn's temporal sundering now, so things have really spiraled out of control from Larry Lee's perspective. Not that he has anything to say about it. He can just sit here and watch. It's all he can do. But, I don't think Eric's ever won an individual GP.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's won multiple team GPs, so he is a GP champ. And by the way, he's just going to lay out triple Nexus of Fate on the table to show Larry Lee, I don't think you have any permanence left. And that was more of a courtesy. That wasn't any, that's just a professional courtesy to say, look, I have these. You're not going to win this game. But if you want to play it out, I'll do it. No problem.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes people get confused when players do that and actually think that it's the opposite.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, check this out, dude.
No.
I've got 3 of these. But it's actually a way to be a little bit more sportsman in some cases.
Yeah, not the intention to be rubbing it in at all from Eric Froelich's perspective. He understands. He's been in Larry's shoes before, where you were the person who is getting kind of comboed off on, and you're sitting there and you're in the top 8 of the Grand Prix, so you're taking it very seriously and you want to make your opponent go through the motions. But at the same time, there's a part of you thinking, man, I really wish I could just pick my cards up and start this game over with, because I know that I'm probably dead. So Eric kind of does the courtesy to Larry of confirming that, yes, you don't have any equity remaining in this game. You don't have to just sit there and watch me kind of play solitaire. So
that's right.
Nothing about that from Eric, anything but considered sporting. And yeah, you talk about winning tournaments. It's very, very difficult. I think I've played in my life something like 170 Grand Prix or Pro Tour tournaments and won 3, and I'm one of the luckiest players in the history of competitive Magic, so that's 167 times I've flown somewhere and not won the tournament, you know, and that's a lot. And certainly, you remember those times that you actually there's nobody else to play,
when it all
that's it.
Comes together.
Exactly.
Yeah, they always say that about any type of tournaments. There's only one happy person after a tournament's over. And, when you have over 1,000 players enter a tournament, that's a lot of people going, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? That kind of thing. And it is interesting, too. Eric's in the Hall of Fame, right? He's a well-respected Magic pro. It's not like he doesn't have accolades, but there is something different about actually winning the stupid trophy and taking the thing home and saying, I did it, I won a professional level Magic tournament. And again, you would be surprised. You can look at a lot of the top names in the game, and a lot of people, that you would just assume had won some of these pro level tournaments, and they just haven't.
How long did Owen Turtenwald wait? How many Grand Prix top 8s in a row before?
I remember that stretch. I was doing commentary for that.
Yeah,
and then the floodgates kind of open. He won back to back.
That's right.
That was super exciting. He also called it. Did you know that?
You're saying that Owen demonstrated confidence in a public setting by calling a shot? I don't believe it.
So I had him early in day 1 of that. I think it was the second of the 2 GPs. I don't remember though. It might have been the first one. And he came in the booth for an interview with me. He was 3-0 or something. I don't remember. And yeah, I said, well, I'll see you tomorrow night. I got a place right here, because he would be doing a winter interview with me. And he's like, I'll be here. He's like, I'm doing it. He's like, book it. And I'm like, you're calling it? He's like, I'm calling it.
Wow.
I'm in the GP. It's just like, okay, sure, Owen. 12 hours later, I was sitting next to him going, dude,
yeah, you
do not break your appointments, do you?
We pour a lot of ourselves into this game, certainly. And I think one of the things that people who follow the game kind of casually or even just play occasionally, I think they don't realize how much time and energy the uber competitive Magic players pour into this. They're not just thinking about it all the time; they're practicing all the time. I mean, Jabberwocky, we talked about him earlier. How many Magic the Gathering online leagues is he playing a week?
Woo.
It's an incredible volume, and so it's. These players have already been rewarded to a certain extent. They've made the top 8. Everyone's got a flight and invite to the next Pro Tour, but there's still a lot to play for.
By the way, you just mentioned him, Logan Nettles, Jabberwocky on Magic Online. A big one for him as well. He's now qualified for the next 2 Pro Tours thanks to top 8ing this. He's got silver, and now he gets an invite from this as well. And, I mean, he's somebody that you and I talked about early as if he wanted to really commit to the pro Magic player
thing. Oh, my gosh, yeah.
I think he could do pretty darn well at it, and we might actually see that happen.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he's got good genes.
Have you tested with him before?
Did tested for Pro Tour Dominaria.
He said, like, hopefully the guys I tested with before will let me come back. I said, I don't think that would be a problem. Like, on top of it, Logan's a really nice guy.
Yes.
He's just a pleasant person to be around. And very annoyingly has a really good mid-range jump shot.
Hate it, yeah.
No Mori ball for him, but he just drills it.
Yeah, but doesn't have Reed's luscious locks.
He does not.
Yeah.
He might. He just keeps it.
That's
keeps
a good point.
Tight,
Keeps it short. Yeah.
All right, underway here in game number 2. Game number 1. Well, it got close. Eric was at 1 life, but he was able to never let Larry Lee have another turn past that and end up winning that first game. But now Larry's on the play, and he's got Heart of Kirin to kick things off. Just a pair of lands in play for Eric so far, so no search for his Kanto. Or if there is one, he's chosen not to play it here on turn 2.
Larry's post-sideboard deck is much better equipped.
How about Duress?
Yeah, Duress is fantastic. He has 4 copies of Duress. His post-sideboard configuration is going to include 4 copies of Chandra Torture Defiance. He also has an Insult to Injury, which we saw be effective last week, and a Sorcerer's Spyglass, which threatens to shut off all of Eric's Teferi's Hero Dominaria. So Larry came prepared to play against Turbo Fog in post-sideboard games.
So Larry fires off Duress. Eric decides, I'm just going to use Negate so that you don't get to see my hand or have a choice in the matter. Bad news for Larry Lee, though. Land go after that. Oh, and look at this Manglehorn from Eric Froelich.
I mean, brutal. Yeah, Manglehorn does exactly what Eric wants here. It obviously, kills the Heart of Kirin and leaves a residual body behind for Eric, which can be a really effective blocker and also potentially pressure one of Larry's Planeswalkers if it comes to that. So Manglehorn really, really strong. Not the matchup where it's the strongest. Obviously, it's designed as like a silver bullet against paradoxical outcome, but when it gets to kill a Heart of Kirin, it feels pretty smart.
Boy, that Heart of Kirin never actually got any damage in as well.
Mm-hmm. And you see the Manglehorn here providing its value again. So it's forcing Chandra to take down. And now, something like a Chandra Ultimate is not going to be in our future, at least not with this particular copy of Chandra. So it may stay on the table. It may provide Larry residual advantage. But boy, did Manglehorn do its job. I mean,
is he forced to tick down? Can he just say, hey, put Chandra on 5 loyalty if you want to start attacking her, fine?
He could. But there's a couple reasons why you'd want to tick down. A, the Manglehorn's immediately going to pressure Chandra's loyalty right back down to 3. And B, if Larry doesn't use the Chandra ability to kill Manglehorn, then Manglehorn's likely to sit out there and just be able to block a Goblin Chain Whirler or something like that and gain Eric life in the future. So I think, Larry incentivized to just deal with the Manglehorn now. It makes sense.
And he does exactly that. So Manglehorn down. But another good turn for Froelich. He uses 3 mana to cast Gift of Paradise, and then with the 2 mana from that island, he played Chart a Course. So developing his mana and crafting his hand. And he is now facing down a Scrap Heap Scrounger as well as Chandra.
Yeah, Chart a Course is so strong. I mean, this is a card that was kind of a little bit of a sleeper, I think, when Ixalan came out. But oh my gosh, they do not print cards this strong very frequently. You look at cards like Tormenting Voice, we've seen people play in Standard, and Cathartic Reunion. Chart a Course, you get to draw the cards first. You get so much selection, and then obviously, of course, and we've seen it in some decks where you actually get to attack, and then it's just a discounted divination. So a card that I've been very impressed with in Standard.
By the way, I mean, to your point, Eric does not plan on attacking.
Right.
He's just playing it because it just gets him right through his library. I mean, that Manglehorn is one of the only ways he has to actually, just draw those cards instead. And to be clear, that can help him out, right?
Sure.
He can get cards in his yard for his search for Escanta, but also just drawing the cards would be fine. And by the way, speaking of, there it is, search for Escanta. So once again, another very good turn for Froelich with another Gift of Paradise and then casting 2 other spells on top of it. So looking pretty good here for Eric as far as his board state goes. A little Teferi wouldn't be bad, though.
And he's at 24.
Yes.
That's the important thing. The Manglehorn killing that Heart of Kirin has gained him so many virtual life over the course of this game. And so they combine that with the 2 Gift of Paradise, and Eric kind of sitting pretty here from a life total perspective.
Boy, even after that pretty good turn from Larry Lee, Eric's still at 20, his starting life total, and is immediately going to transform Search. Larry doesn't have any way to interact with that, right? There's no room in those decks for Field of Ruin.
No, but we see Eric that does put the Gift of Paradise onto his basic lands, and that's something that you want to get into the habit of doing when you play Turbo Fog for the first time, because a lot of decks do have the 1 or 2 incidental Field of Ruin, so got to be careful with that.
And Eric's going to just enjoy the luxury of time here. He's going to play a tap land and pass the turn. That leaves him the ability to use Escanta the Sunken Ruin and cast whatever else he happens to have in his hand. So what now? The 2 pieces of the puzzle are a Teferi and a Nexus?
Yeah, that's basically it for Eric. And meanwhile, for Larry, I mean,
he's generating some serious value off that Chandra.
You're running in a pool right now, basically. You're trying to try to get as much pressure onto Eric as possible and present lethal combat at some point in the near future. Maybe have something like Insult to Injury to sneak through damage. But boy, I mean, no guarantee he sees another turn.
Okay, there's a Root Snare that Larry will be aware of. Not much to do about it, though. Just force Eric to use it at some point.
And Larry, has his card face down right now. Could probably sees the writing on the wall from the way this game went earlier on. Last turn, Eric chose to play a Scattered Groves instead of cycling it, indicating that he probably has a handful of gas right now that he just wants the mana to cast. So that's a tough spot for Larry.
Now, Eric did take 6 there, though, right? He didn't end up casting a fog for
that
turn? Okay, so he should be at 14, I think?
Yep, and
ooh!
There's the
one
Teferi.
Piece of the puzzle.
It looks like Larry is going to have a 1-turn window here where Eric is going to have to pass. He's going to have to use this Root Snare that he picked up off the Azcanta the Sunken Ruin, and then Larry really needs to have specifically Insult to Injury this turn. And if he does, very likely to be able to deal, I think, the 14 remaining damage to Eric, if we understand correctly the life totals.
Yeah, I do think that Eric is at not 20. We'll have to ask him, get a double check on that. But let's see if Larry has it. Does he have Insult to Injury? That is the technology that people have been adopting to help combat this Turbo Fog deck. And it looks like he's not casting it, so yeah, he doesn't have it. We have Eric at 12 now. Okay, 7.
2 from the Chandra. The Chandra did not cast Scrap Heap's Crown for this turn, so 12 makes sense to me.
Oh, and it's Settle the Wreckage from Froelich. Not even that Root Snare that we saw revealed last turn to the Azcanta the Sunken Ruin. Instead, it's just the Wrecking Ball. Settle the Wreckage. Oof.
And now
Larry attacked with everything too.
Even that Ragamuffin.
He ain't coming back.
No.
Oh boy.
Larry really, really wants to have a post-combat Sorcerer Spyglass here to have any chance in this game. If he has to say go against Teferi and Azcanta the Sunken Ruin,
I feel like he wants a post-combat box of tissues because it's going to be all tears for Larry Lee here. Eric Froelich moving towards a quarterfinal victory and in a pretty decisive fashion as well. I gotta say, Larry Lee seemed to have played this quite well, but the draws didn't come together for him, and they did for Eric.
I think you got to look back at that Manglehorn too, and some of the work that did over the course of this game. You know, how much more pressure is Eric under if that Heart of Kirin starts getting crewed on turn 3?
Still haven't seen a Nexus here, though, have we?
No, but at this point, no real threat for.
Yeah, there's no Banefires. I was checking.
No Banefire, anything of that nature. Yeah, so
because that would be a pretty sweet way to win the game for Larry.
It would be.
But as usual, Eric Froelich runs hotter than the sun. Just ask him.
Yep. Self-admitted luckiest player on earth, I believe.
15 life now.
He may. Yeah, it doesn't look like he has it next. Oh, does he? Nope, he's going to have to give Larry one more turn. Man, there's still lands left in this deck? I thought he just...
he got all, especially basics.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it looks like Larry's going to try to keep the loyalty on Teferi down at least a little bit, but Eric says, I'm going to slam the door on this thing. You've only got 2 cards left in your hand. You clearly don't have the ones that I really care about. And in fact, he didn't. He had a land and a PNLR, and now Froelich gets to go into turbo mode here because as long as he can find a Nexus of Fate, things should be about done.
Yes. And he's going to be able to get through another 6 cards at least in his deck. And with 6 cards, draw step here, Teferi, and has Azcanta activation. Ugh. If he needs to, he can just play a backup Teferi to get a 7th card deep. If none of those 7 cards are a Nexus of Fate, he can then use other things like cycling or additional copies of Charter Course to go even deeper than that. So he's going to be able to have quite a bit of looks at a possible Nexus here.
He found one.
I don't want to be premature, but I like Eric's chances here.
Yeah. The odds are strongly in his favor, shall we say?
Yes, and he has not used Teferi in the Hero of Dominaria at this turn.
Oh, my goodness sakes. All right.
Well, now he has.
And we've seen how this ends. Basically, Larry doesn't get to take another turn. We'll see an ultimate from Teferi. Then all relevant permanents start getting exiled thanks to that emblem that Teferi gives you. And then usually we see a concession about that point.
And, Eric even able to dig deeper here with the Teferi trigger untapping Azcanta and letting Eric use Azcanta the Sunken Ruin twice in a turn. So, it's pretty close to like deterministically over at this point that he can just get through so much of his deck in one turn. It's almost impossible for him to not find a Nexus.
Now Teferi's up to 8.
And remember, every turn that Eric goes through this cycle, a larger percentage of his deck is Nexus of Fate. It starts out as 4 as 60, and then just continues to increase every single portion of the game.
He's digging for one right now, and he's found it.
And it's Supreme Will, which he's not obligated to put face up, but he just wanted to show, I think, that he did find it off of the Supreme Will.
That's right. And he has enough mana to do so. Untapping those Gift of Paradise lands lets you ramp out using Teferi plus Gift of Paradise, which is just another great synergy in this deck. And this part, well, he'll be going through the motions now, but this one's just about over. Looks like Eric Froelich's going to be in the semifinals here, Paul.
Yeah, I think so too. He needs backups on backups on backups. He's got Negate and cycling and backup Teferis and fun stuff. The way Dr. Garfield intended.
He just cycled a Haze of Pollen. Just spewed that cycle off, even though he's about to ultimate Teferi. And there goes the dice. Let's make an emblem. And now the question is just how long does Larry Lee want to watch this? Look, we're in the top 8 now. He doesn't really have a strong incentive to concede at this point, so he'll probably just say, yeah, go for it. And then when he realizes there is no chance that I can possibly win, he'll concede and maybe go get dinner with his friends.
Yeah, celebrate. I mean, celebrate a great run and a Pro Tour invite. So congrats to Larry Lee on making it this far.
Yeah, he played well here as well. The cards just weren't there for him.
Not a hair out of place. I mean, I nothing that I could fault. It's just didn't draw the right half of his deck, and Eric's draws were quite good. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, one of the just mathematically luckier players I think that we have on tour, Eric Froelich.
Proven.
It's just it's objectively true.
It is known.
This is fun. I mean, I it's not maybe the most fun thing to watch, but I'm living vicariously through Eric, and you just got all these cool foils going on, emblem out, and it's just kind of fun.
You cast in a 7-drop every turn for the rest of the game.
Yeah. when your lands just get so plentiful that you have to stack them up.
Piles of lands. Draw Step says get rid of Karizev. And Larry says, all right, well, that's going to do it. My chances have diminished to 0. But I'm glad he's still smiling because a really great run, honestly, for Larry Lee. And we're going to be seeing him at the Pro Tour.
Yep.
And that's really exciting. I wouldn't be surprised if he did well. We got a chance to cover him a couple of times over the weekend, and I was impressed with how he played for sure. But it is the Hall of Famer that dispatches Larry, sends him packing, and sends himself right into the semifinals. So Eric Froelich is the first one in, and we're kind of filling those other seats as we go here. We're going to actually check in right now on another match that's going on. We've got Alex Bertoncini. He's playing against Ben Friedman. Why don't we check that out right now? Live looking into game number 3 here, Paul. And we've got a Sorcerous Spyglass on an upside-down Teferi. I'm assuming that Teferi's what was named with that. And what else? We've got a bunch of permanents that are taking up space that isn't super relevant. So really this board isn't quite as cluttered as it initially looks. It's just Arguel's Bloodfast and a Champion of Wits facing down a Baral. Those are the cards that are usable right now.
Yep. And Arguel's Bloodfast really powerful in blue-black versus blue-white matchups, but Baral is a pretty big problem as well, allowing you to kind of win counter wars. Although it seems to me as if Alex might be a little bit resource light compared to Ben.
Alex draws his card for the turn and surveys the scene. All right, he's going to start things off with Search for Escanta.
Wow, it looks like Ben's hand is just stacked right now. 2 copies of Torrential Gear Hulk. I think that's a Scarab God, and he also has a Vraska's Contempt. So lots of good stuff in there for Ben Friedman.
He also had Jace's Defeat to take care of that search. Make sure that Alex Bertoncini doesn't start getting cards upon cards every single turn. Ben Friedman kind of chewing through his deck here. He's going to cycle a Censor so that he can try to hit a land, which he did. He's left up 2 mana as well. No attacks for him at the moment, just the 2-1 versus the 1-3, so no big benefit there. Brawl isn't doing a ton at the moment, although now that I say that, Brawl gets in the red zone.
Brawl brawls, yep.
Indeed. Is that at like 1 commander damage?
Is he now the Monarch?
Boy, we had a lot of Monarch at the Pro Tour of all places. That Palace Jailer?
Yeah.
Whoa.
At one point.
That's a swingy card.
At one point, Andrew Cuneo looks over to John Finkel and myself and slams the table, which I haven't seen Andrew Cuneo do just about ever.
Never.
And we said, what happened? And he said, I missed the Monarch trigger. And John and I both asked simultaneously, what is the Monarch? And he said, I was.
He's right.
Yeah.
And I know why he's mad. He was going to draw an extra card.
Yeah, and he does love drawing cards.
That's the whole point, isn't it?
Well, it's the point unless you put the Scarab God onto the table.
Hello. No need to draw cards if you got that guy going.
Yep.
Well, Alex Bertoncini looks like he is falling very far behind at this point. What did Bendis do? He activated his Bloodfast there on end step. And from the perspective of the game now, of course, the Scarab God looks like it's the one that's going to be poised to actually finish things off. But from what I can tell, that Arguel's Bloodfast is just dominated here. And
yeah.
Drawn multiple extra cards off of it and kind of burying Alex in card advantage.
Baral can provide a mana advantage in these blue mirrors where all of a sudden your disallows and your negates are cheaper, but Arguel's Bloodfast is kind of a re-raise there. So, Ben is able to just get so far ahead on resources. Alex is not meaningfully pressuring Ben's life total, and so, oh my.
Oh, a Censor, which he had just cycled one the turn cycle before. Alex probably felt like, I could probably sneak this in. Nope.
Gotta have a backup Censor.
Boy.
And now, importantly, the Scarab God can target Alex's Torrential Gear Hulk right now.
Forget it.
And there's things like Jace's Defeat, Vraska's Contempt, all kinds of nonsense.
I think there's a Doomfall at the bottom there.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly how or in what way Alex could possibly get back into this game. His ways to beat the Scarab God basically include Cast Out or Ben kind of making a careless attack and then Alex having something like seal away. So pretty tough spot here for Alex Bertoncini. Now, the one thing that we don't know is has Alex cast on approach for the second sun yet in this game. It's doubtful given the land situation, but that is one of the ways you can steal games out of nowhere, is having already cast one and then sneaking a second one through. But it's doubtful that he had a first one cast.
Yeah. Technically could, but we have been here for a little while now. I haven't seen it.
I had a nightmare. I played a white-blue approach deck in a Grand Prix a couple months back, and I woke up the night before the tournament in a nightmare that we got in a situation where neither my opponent nor I could agree on whether approach of the second sun had been cast. Because it's not like
It's
writing
your
down
word
life
versus
totals.
mine
Yeah,
at
you
that
know, it's there's.
Oh, that's great. That is a nightmare.
I think I cast it. I mean, I can't remember.
Well, I had a dream that I had 9 cards in hand, like Ben Friedman does. Playing against, I don't know, sure,
boy.
Alex Bertoncini.
Here comes Sensor.
Top 8 of a GP, and you just got all the tools. That's got to feel good.
Now
It's looking very much like Ben Friedman's going to be able to get through, although the approach deck does have the ability to kind of steal a win since it is using an alternate win condition. I don't see how he's going to actually pull that off, though.
Yeah, when we came over here, you mentioned both players had not many things of relevance. That's still true about Alex's side of the table. Ben has some things.
By the way, that was I want to pass the turn, and Ben still had to discard. He had 9 cards or 8 cards after that. Land go from Bertoncini after cycling a land. And this one just is not coming together for Alex.
There are 2 types of cleanup steps, and you're usually winning by a lot or losing by a lot when you use the cleanup step.
That's right. That's a good point.
So this is the triggered ability from the Scarab God here.
Ben with 2 zombies. So he's going to scry 2. Knock a couple life points off of Alex Bertoncini's total.
And one of the things when you're playing blue mirrors, 2 blue controllers against each other, is that you want to be the person who's leaning on the other person, meaning that you get something like a Teferi or like a Scarab God that provides a repetitive advantage, because then it puts all the onus on the other person to be the first mover to get themselves out of this mess. So you see Ben not even attacking, not running into something like Seal Away or Settle the Wreckage or something of that nature. He doesn't need to. The Scarab God is going to win the game for him. He has inevitability as it stands right now. Alex needs to do something to shift the paradigm in this game, or he's just going to get ground into dust.
Yeah, he's trying. He just cast a Search for Ascanta, which he's hoping to transform at some point, though. It looks like he's only got a few cards in his graveyard right now. So perhaps a little too late here for Bertoncini, but he's trying. He's fighting the fight.
Might see an attack here pretty soon. Or is he not? Does not have counter magic. He has. He doesn't want to run into something silly. You know, that's
right.
He wants to be careful. You know, and certainly I think the Scarab God is nowhere near the red zone this game. Does not want to run into something like Seal Away, but he may feel tempted to get some of these zombies going. Oh, wow.
Well, you say that, but I have to assume then that he has some type of backup plan here, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not just going to risk the Scarab God like that.
Right. He must feel quite a bit comfortable about his resources.
And it was Seal Away, by the way, for Bertoncini that he's attempting to resolve right now. You know the song Steal Away?
Yeah.
I think of that every single time I see Seal Away.
I think of Come Sail Away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's decent, too. Also both like real kind of smooth.
Oh, yeah.
Grocery store rock. All right, and it looks like we have a handshake here because Ben Friedman said, look, I've got these things and a lethal attack. So Alex Bertoncini is going to extend the hand, and that's Ben Friedman moving on to the semis. So this already pretty stacked top 8 is definitely getting more intense. We've got Eric Froelich and Ben Friedman now as 2 of our 4 semifinalists, and that's going to shape up to something pretty cool. All right, it sounds like the other matches are done. Maybe I could just update them. No, it doesn't look like I have that at the moment. That's okay. I'll get you an update when we come back because we've got a commercial break, and we'll let you know who won our other 2 matches and set up the semifinals for you when we come back.